The entire restaurant went dead silent. A wine glass shattered, and 3 towering bodyguards instantly reached into their jackets. Why? Because Aniya Harvey, a college student working the dinner shift, had just confidently planted a kiss right on the lips of Carmine Galante, the most feared, stone-faced mafia boss in the city. It was only supposed to be a silly dare to win a month of weekend shifts. But looking at Carmine's bright red ears and completely short-circuited expression, Aniya realizes she didn't just win the bet. She accidentally stole a mob boss's heart. Now, Carmine is deploying bulletproof SUVs just to deliver her morning coffee. Can Aniya handle a terrifying crime lord who turns out to be a total sweetheart? The air in Bella Vista always smelled like garlic, expensive wine, and tonight, pure, unadulterated terror. Carmine Galante sat at table 4. With his tailored charcoal suit, sharp jawline, and a permanent scowl that could freeze boiling water, he looked like a man who ordered hits between courses. The entire waiting staff was hiding behind the kitchen doors, drawing straws. "I'll do it," Aniya Harvey said, grabbing a basket of warm breadsticks. She was a 21-year-old biology major who survived on iced coffee and sheer willpower. Carmine Galante didn't scare her. Her upcoming organic chemistry midterm did. Sarah, another waitress, grabbed her arm. "Are you insane? He's the anvil. If you mess up his espresso, we'll be looking for you in the Hudson River." Aniya smirked. "Tell you what, bet me a month of your weekend shifts that I can't get the Ice King to crack a smile." Sarah gasped. "You're on. But if he glares at you, you owe me cover shifts for a year." "Deal," Aniya said. She pushed through the kitchen doors and glided over to table 4. Carmine didn't look up from his phone, surrounded by 3 massive, silent bodyguards who looked like brick walls and sunglasses. Aniya set the breadsticks down with a soft thud. Before Carmine could even utter his usual gruff order, Aniya leaned down, gently cupped his jawline, and planted a quick, confident, perfectly warm kiss right on his lips. "Compliments to the chef, handsome," Aniya said, popping a casual smile. "What can I get started for you?" The entire restaurant went dead silent. A busboy dropped a tray of wine glasses, the shatter echoing like gunfire. The bodyguards instantly reached into their jackets. Aniya just stood there, completely unbothered, hands folded neatly behind her back. But the real shocker was Carmine. The terrifying mafia boss didn't yell. He didn't signal his men. Instead, his dark eyes went wide, his jaw dropped, and a furious, bright red blush crept from his collar all the way to the tips of his ears. He stared at Aniya, completely short-circuited. Carmine stammered, his voice losing all its gravelly edge. "Chicken parm? Please." Without waiting for a response, he stood up so fast he knocked his chair over, threw a stack of $100 bills on the table, and practically sprinted out of the restaurant, his bewildered bodyguards scrambling to keep up. Later that night, Aniya sat on the flipped chairs of the closed restaurant, counting the $500 tip Carmine had left behind. Her lips still tingled slightly from the kiss. She chuckled to herself, shaking her head. He was supposed to be a monster, but for a split second, he had looked entirely, adorably human. The next morning, Aniya's walk to her early biology lecture was interrupted by a sleek, midnight black SUV pulling up to the curb. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Marco, Carmine's largest and most intimidating bodyguard. He didn't say a word. He simply extended a massive, scarred arm through the window, holding a Vinny iced caramel macchiato with extra espresso, exactly how Aniya liked it. Attached to the cup was a pristine white note written in elegant cursive for the emotional distress. "CG." Aniya blinked, taking the coffee. How did he know my order? Marco just gave a solemn nod, rolled up the window, and the SUV sped off into the morning traffic. A few days later, the grand gestures escalated from amusing to outright ridiculous. A full 3-piece mariachi band showed up outside Aniya's cramped apartment building, playing passionate love ballads while neighbors poked their heads out of their windows. The lead singer handed her a bouquet of rare black roses with another note. "They told me women like music. I apologize if this is too loud." Aniya laughed out loud, leaning against her doorframe. The feared anvil of the city was courting her like an awkward teenager who had discovered romance from a standard internet search. Later that night, Aniya walked into Bella Vista for her evening shift, only to find the restaurant completely empty. The dim ambient lighting was on, and classical violin music echoed softly through the speakers. There were no customers and no other waitstaff. Just Carmine, sitting at table 4, wearing a fresh tailored suit but looking incredibly stiff. "Am I fired, or did I miss an apocalypse?" Aniya asked, walking over, her hands tucked into her apron. Carmine cleared his throat, his eyes darting down to his polished shoes before meeting hers. The fearsome reputation vanished the moment he spoke. "I bought out the restaurant for the night. I thought, a proper dinner. Without the shouting, or the flying glassware." Aniya smiled, sliding into the booth across from him. "You know, normal people just text." "I don't have your number," Carmine admitted softly, a faint, genuine smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "And my lifestyle doesn't exactly teach normal, but I wanted to apologize for running out on you." "You didn't run, Carmine. You sprinted," Aniya teased, leaning forward. "So, is this an interrogation or a date?" Carmine's eyes softened, the tension melting from his broad shoulders. "I'm hoping for a date, if you'll have me." The dinner went surprisingly well. As it turned out, Carmine wasn't a ruthless, bloodthirsty movie villain. He was just a deeply stressed-out CEO of a chaotic family import empire who spent his rare weekends making sourdough bread with his grandmother. Aniya found herself laughing at his deadpan humor, completely forgetting about the intimidating reputation that usually preceded him. "So, the anvil is just because you dropped a literal anvil on your foot in high school shop class?" Aniya asked, swirling her white wine. Carmine winced, a handsome flush rising on his neck. "My cousins never let me live it down. The local papers picked it up and assumed it meant I crush bones. I just let them believe it because it helps with contract negotiations. It's exhausting, honestly." Aniya smiled, her heart doing a strange, fluttering flip. Underneath the sharp suits and the terrifying facade was a genuinely sweet man trying his best to carry a legacy he hadn't really asked for. She reached across the white tablecloth and lightly touched his hand. His fingers twitched in surprise, then gently closed around hers, his gaze softening completely. A few minutes later, the romantic bubble shattered. The front doors of Bella Vista burst open, the bell chiming aggressively. In walked Enzo, a rival distributor known more for his terrible silk shirts, slick back hair, and excessive cologne than any actual criminal masterminding. He had 2 burly guys trailing behind him, trying very hard to look menacing. "Galante," Enzo shouted, slamming his hand onto a nearby table. "You think you can just buy out the whole neighborhood's favorite spot and dodge our meeting? We need to talk about the shipping docks." The air in the room instantly turned to ice. Carmine's expression hardened into a terrifying mask. The vulnerable man from 2 minutes ago vanished, replaced by a ruthless boss. He started to stand up, his jaw clenched, his hand moving instinctively toward the inside of his jacket. Aniya sighed, rolling her eyes. Her perfect steak dinner was getting cold, and she was not about to let some mid-level corporate bully ruin her first good date in months. Before Carmine could even take a step, Aniya stood up first. She grabbed a heavy silver serving tray from the side stand, her eyes locked on Enzo. "Hey, silk shirt," Aniya called out, her voice cutting through the tension. "I don't care who you are, but you're ruining my date, and your cologne is giving me a migraine. Move it." Enzo blinked, utterly bewildered. "Who the hell is this?" he sputtered, looking at Carmine. Then back to Aniya, who was casually balancing the heavy silver tray on her shoulder like a baseball bat. "I'm the person who's going to smack you into next week if you don't take your knockoff designer cologne out of here," Aniya said, her voice steady and entirely unimpressed. "Carmine is off the clock. Go home, Enzo." Enzo looked at Carmine, expecting the Mafia boss to order his execution for the disrespect. Instead, Carmine was leaning back in his booth, his chin resting on his hand, looking up at Aniya with pure, unadulterated adoration. He looked like a man who had just witnessed a miracle. Realizing he was completely outmatched by the sheer absurdity of the situation, Enzo cleared his throat nervously. We'll discuss the shipping docks later, Galante, he muttered, quickly turning on his heel and retreating out the door with his men. The restaurant fell quiet again. Carmine broke the silence by bursting into a rich, booming laugh, a sound Aniya hadn't heard from him before. You just liquefied the ego of a man who controls half the city's imports, and you did it with a serving tray, he chuckled, shaking his head. Aniya slid back into the booth, setting the tray down. Hey, nobody messes with my steak. Or my date. Carmine reached across the table, taking her hand again, his eyes incredibly warm. I think I'm completely in love with you, Aniya. Good, she smirked, squeezing his hand. Because you're way too cute to let go. A few months later, the neighborhood had grown entirely used to the city's most unusual power couple. Inside Bella Vista, Aniya sat at a back table, surrounded by heavy biology textbooks and highlighters, cramming for her final exams. From the kitchen, Carmine emerged, carefully carrying a wooden board with a perfectly round, steaming loaf of fresh sourdough bread. He was wearing his usual tailored trousers, but over his white dress shirt was a ridiculous, frilly pink apron Aniya had bought him as a joke. Break time, Carmine announced, setting the bread down. How's the organic chemistry coming along, Tesoro? Aniya looked up, a bright smile spreading across her face. Near the front door, Marco and the other towering bodyguards stood at absolute attention, completely ignoring the fact that their fearsome boss was wearing pastel ruffles. Aniya reached up, gently grabbing Carmine by his apron strings, and pulled him down for a soft, lingering kiss. It wasn't for a dare, and nobody was shocked anymore. Carmine's ears still turned a faint, adorable shade of pink, but this time, he just wrapped his arms around her and smiled.